Hi guys, Mr. B here. It is Monday, the 18th of January. I hope you had a lovely weekend. You managed to relax and chill out a bit, and you're ready for another week of learning. Good to see you all. Wakey, wakey, rise and shine. Let's get cracking. This week's going to be really cool. We're going to start looking within our English at common themes in fairy tales, and we're going to have a look at perhaps having a go at writing our own. I'm back in the pink room today. I've been booted out the staff room. There were too many cakes and sweet things in there, and I thought it would be best to come here. I'm going to share my screen with you here, so you can see what we're up to. Okay, you are going to need to write the date and the waltz. If you're in school, Mrs. Lewis, you can hand out the sheets for the English that I printed off for you, and that can be stuck in. But you all need to write the date and waltz, so you can do that now. Please pause the video. Okay, so Monday the 18th of January 2021, our waltz today, we are learning to identify features in a range of fairy tales. So think back to Friday and think about those features that we identified. You might even want to skip back in your book. You created a key, what we call a key, a color-coded key, and you identified features from that story, from that fairy tale. Today we're going to do that, but we're going to be looking at a number of fairy tales. Actually, this lesson is this waltz, identify features in a range of fairy tales. We're going to do this, we're going to start an activity today and we're going to finish it tomorrow. In total, we're going to be looking at 4 different fairy tales, and we're going to look at 2 today and 2 tomorrow. Okay, now I'm aware, and I've been made aware, that my videos are too long, so I'm going to try and do this as quickly as possible. I probably need to stop talking so much, and I like the sound of my voice a bit too much, so I'm going to stop talking as much and try and speed through it. So feedback last week, I noticed that we did do some great feature spotting on Friday, so well done to you. Our starter, I am going to ask you just to do this at the top of your book. What we're going to do is have a go at using those prefixes again, D, non, and miss this time. So things that go before a word and how it changes the meaning. So for example, down here, I've selected the word behave. All right. I'm going to see if I can find it in the dictionary, or you can go on an online dictionary. I only want you to do 1 or 2 of these, by the way. Have a go at writing the meaning of it. What prefix would go before behave? What would mean that you're not behaving? Would it be debehave, non-behave, or misbehave? You'd be absolutely correct if you said misbehave. And what I want you to do then is type it into the online dictionary and find out a new meaning. So have a go at the, don't have to do behave, but you can choose one of these words from here, select the correct prefix for it, and then have a go at finding the new meaning, okay? Please don't spend too much time doing that. I really want you to concentrate on today's lesson, okay? So our writing target, anybody? To use inverted commas to punctuate direct speech, okay? And we're going to be doing that as we go on, okay? So let's have a look at these. There are some fairy tales. Can anyone tell me their favourites? Have a look and pick your favourite. Hopefully you've read some of these before, you've heard of them before, and start thinking about what happens in that fairy tale. Okay, if you want to pause it in class, please feel free, and you can have a bit more of a discussion about it. What we're going to do is answer this question. Do they all include the same features as Babe's 3 Little Pigs? So you're probably scratching your head thinking, well, what does Mr. Bramwell mean about these features? These were the features that we identified. So do these stories have characters with special qualities, magical qualities, okay? things that make them an amazing character. Is there any famous lines from these stories? So, for example, in Babe's Three Little Pigs, there's a famous bit of speech that if I said it, you could tell me definitely that which story is it from. I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house. Everybody knows that that piece of speech is from the Three Little Pigs. Okay, so famous speech. A setting. So we all know that setting now means where something is happening. Okay, fairy tale language. Most fairy tales begin with, what do they begin with? Once upon a time. And end with, they all lived happily ever after. Okay, so there is common fairy tale language. A magical element. So what in the story happens that wouldn't happen in real life? So in Babe's Three Little Pigs, what was it that was magical? Well, you could say that pigs building houses is quite magical. You could also say that pigs talking is a magical element. The wolf talking is being quite a magical element. A clear plot. So is it really clear what happens at the beginning? Mum tells them to go and build a house. In the middle, they build houses and the wolf comes along and blows them down. And at the end, the wolf climbs down the chimney and they eat him. Okay, so in the Three Little Pigs, there is a clear beginning, middle and end. Good versus evil. Well, that's an easy one in Babe's Three Little Pigs because obviously the pigs are good and the wolf is evil. Okay, so there we go. That was from Friday. We're going to have a look at 2 fairy tales today and see if these features are in those fairy tales. I'm going to do one with you, all right, and I'm going to leave you to do one by yourself, all right? Now, if we were in class, I would hand out to you now the fairy tales in printed out. So the 4 that we're going to look at are Jack and the Beanstalk, Little Red Riding Hood, the 3 Billy Goats Gruff, and the Gingerbread Man. So what we're going to do is have a look at them. And whilst we're looking at them, I want you to tell me, so I'm just going to change my view to full screen. Can you tell me if you can find characters with special qualities, speech, setting, it's an enchanted setting, okay? Magical elements in it, a clear plot, good versus evil, and fairy tale language. We're going to look, first of all, at Little Red Riding Hood. I'm just going to go to make sure we can see it all. Right, I'm going to read this one to you, all right, and I'm going to leave you to do the next one by yourself. Okay, Little Red Riding Hood. Once upon a time, there was a little girl who lived in a village near the forest. Whenever she went out, the little girl wore a red riding cloak, so everyone in the village called her Little Red Riding Hood. One morning, Little Red Riding Hood asked her mother if she could go to visit her grandmother, as it had been a while since they'd seen each other. That's a good idea, her mother said. So they packed a nice basket for Little Red Riding Hood to take to her grandmother. When the basket was ready, the little girl put on her red cloak and kissed her mother goodbye. Remember, go straight to your grandma's house, her mother cautioned. Don't dawdle along the way, and please don't talk to strangers. The woods are dangerous. Don't worry, Mummy, said Little Red Riding Hood. I'll be careful. But when Little Red Riding Hood noticed some lovely flowers in the woods, she forgot her promise to her mother. She picked a few, watched the butterflies flit around for a while, and listened to the frogs croaking, and then picked a few more. Little Red Riding Hood was enjoying the warm summer day so much that she didn't notice a dark shadow approaching out of the forest behind her. Suddenly, the wolf appeared beside her. What are you doing out here, little girl? The wolf asked in a voice as friendly as he could muster. I'm on my way to see my grandma, who lives through the forest near the brook, Little Red Riding Hood replied. Then she realised how late she was and quickly excused herself, rushing down the path to her grandma's house. The wolf, in the meantime, took a shortcut. The wolf, a little out of breath from running, arrived at grandma's house and knocked lightly on the door. Oh, thank goodness, dear. Come in, come in. I was worried sick that something had happened to you in the forest, said Grandma, thinking that the knock on the door was her granddaughter. The wolf let himself in. Poor Granny did not have time to say another word before the wolf gobbled her up. The wolf let out a satisfied burp and then poked through Granny's wardrobe to find a nightgown that he liked. He added a frilly sleeping cap and, for good measure, dabbed some of Granny's perfume behind his pointy ears. A few minutes later, Little Red Riding Hood knocked on the door. The wolf jumped into bed and pulled the covers over his nose. "Who is it?" he called in a cackly voice. "It's me, Little Red Riding Hood." "Oh, how lovely! Do come in, my dear," croaked the wolf. When Little Red Riding Hood entered the little cottage, she scarcely recognised her grandmother. "Grandmother, your voice sounds so odd. Is something the matter?" she asked. "Oh, I just have a touch of cold," squeaked the wolf, adding a cough at the end to prove the point. "But grandmother, what big ears you have," said Little Red Riding Hood as she edged closer to the bed. "The better to hear you with, my dear," replied the wolf. "But grandmother, what big eyes you have," said Little Red Riding Hood. "The better to see you with, my dear," replied the wolf. "But grandmother, what big teeth you have," said Little Red Riding Hood, her voice quivering slightly. "The better to eat you with, my dear," roared the wolf, and he leapt out of bed and began to chase the little girl. Almost too late, Little Red Riding Hood realised that the person in the bed was not her grandmother, but a hungry wolf. She ran across the room and through the door, shouting, "Help, wolf!" as loudly as she could. A woodsman who was chopping logs nearby heard her cry and ran towards the cottage as fast as he could. He grabbed the wolf and made him spit out the poor grandmother, who was a bit frazzled by the whole experience, but still in one piece. "Oh, Grandma, I was so scared," sobbed Little Red Riding Hood. "I'll never speak to strangers or dawdle in the forest again." There, child, you've learned an important lesson. Thank goodness you shouted loud enough for this kind woodsman to hear." The woodsman knocked out the wolf and carried him deep into the forest where he wouldn't bother people any longer. The end. Okay, so there is the story of Little Red Riding Hood. All right, what we're going to do now is, okay, I'm just going to skip onto this slide, is we are going to, sorry, let me just change the view of that so you can see it all. We are going to draw a table that looks like this, okay? So these are going to be across the top, all right? So these are the 4 stories we're going to look at. We're going to do Little Red Riding Hood together. You guys are then going to have a go at 3 Billy Goats Gruff by yourselves. And then tomorrow, we'll do Jack and the Beanstalk and the Gingerbread Man. Okay, so they're the 4 stories we're doing across the top. And these are all the features that we're going to hopefully then fill in to show that all of these stories include these features. All right, so we've just read, to give you some time, I want you to pause the video and see if you can hand draw. I know it's difficult. Try and use a ruler. Okay, give yourself a big page as well to copy this table into your book, giving yourself plenty of space to write it. Okay, so pause the video and can you copy a table like this into your book? Do that now. Okay. Hopefully you've done that and you've copied this table into your book. What we're going to do is, as I said, fill in these gaps. So we've just read the story of Little Red Riding Hood. All right. So what characters are in the story and what are their special features? I've put some answers here. Okay. Now, characters with special qualities. I've abbreviated it. So LRRH stands for Little Red Riding Hood. So that is one of the characters. The wolf is in the story, Mum is in the story, Grandma and the woodcutter. So there's 5 of them. Are there any with special qualities? I would suggest that the wolf is rather special because he can talk. Okay, that's not an everyday occurrence. So the wolf, I would put down maybe as someone having special qualities. If you're in class, you can pause the video and talk about it after each one. So from the story of Little Red Riding Hood, is there a magical element to it? I put down, again, that the wolf talks. There isn't any sort of magic beans or anything else that's that magical about this one. But certainly I wouldn't expect to see a talking wolf every day. So maybe you put that down as your magical element. Now, speech. Is there a famous line from this story that if I were to say to you, you go, ah, yeah, that's from Little Red Riding Hood? For me, I put down, there's that bit where Little Red Riding Hood comes into the house where or into the bedroom where the wolf is in bed and starts saying, "Grandmother, what big eyes you have." If I said that to you, you would go, "Oh, that I know what story that's from." Okay, and you can see that it's speech because there are inverted commas or speech marks surrounding the bit where Little Red Riding Hood is speaking. So, "Grandmother, what big eyes you have." And then the wolf says, "All the best for seeing you with." Okay, so that's speech. Is there anything for a clear plot? Is there a clear plot, a beginning, a middle, and an end? Now, I've put a little bit more information here. I think there is. Okay, I'd say at the beginning, Little Red Riding Hood goes to Granny, goes to see Granny. She dawdles. What does dawdle mean? Maybe you can stop and discuss that word dawdle. Okay, you might not know what it means. It's a really good word to use. All right, so stop the video and discuss dawdle. Okay, she gets into the forest and she dawdles. She takes too long. Meets the wolf. The wolf thinks to him, "Oh, I'm going to be clever. I'm going to get to Granny's first." He eats her. Little Red Riding Hood almost gets eaten when he gets there, but luckily runs out of the house. And the happy ending is that the woodcutter is there to save the day, and Granny gets out alive as well. Okay, so there is definitely a clear beginning, middle, and end. The setting. The setting is a little cottage in the woods. Okay, that's where the majority of the story takes place, is in Grandma's house. Good versus evil. Well, that's an easy one. I'd say Little Red Riding Hood versus the wolf. Okay, and we all know that in a fairy tale, good always wins. All right, and so Little Red Riding Hood won. And the fairy tale language, if we go back to the start of the story, it started with "once upon a time." So there you go. I have filled out the Little Red Riding Hood story. What I'd like you to do now is go back to this one. Okay, I'm just going to make sure you can see it properly. What I'd like you to do is, I'm just going to bring that down slightly, is pause the video so that you can read this yourself. Okay, so take 10 minutes to read this story. Okay, so I put the numbers there. So 1 down to there, then go up to there, then down to there, then the final bit is there. All right, as you're going, all right, you need to be looking out for all of these features. All right, so you're going to fill in the 3 Billy Goats Gruff, the next column. You're going to tell me what characters there are in the 3 Billy Goats Gruff. What is the magical elements? Is there any famous speech? I know what answer I'm looking for there. There is some definite famous speech in this fairy tale. Give me a little summary of what the plot is. Where's it set? Is there a good versus evil? I think there is. Do you know what? I'm thinking in my head, I'm answering all of these now because I know the story quite well. So see if you can have a go at filling in 3 Billy Goats Gruff. I haven't included Jack and the Beanstalk and the Gingerbread Man. You won't be able to do them today. We will do those tomorrow. Okay, we'll have a bit more time. We'll take 2 lessons doing that. All right. So tomorrow, what we're going to do is complete our class copies. Have a good go. I'll go back to, here it is, the 3 Billy Goats Gruff. And what I'd like you to do, I'm just going to make it so you can see the full screen. Sorry, I'm sure there's a quick way to do it, but I'm not too sure. Full screen. There you go. So you can see, pause the story there and have a good read. All right. Fill in the gaps, and if you can send them in on your marking, your dojo, it would be great to see. Does this story have all of the features of a fairy tale? Good luck.